Tufa. Have you ever heard of it? It's really not a northern expression for tufa. Actually, I'm going to tell you what tufa is, and we're going to make some Hypertufa today. Tufa is a porous rock of calcium carbonate, and it is formed by precipitation around water, like a mineral spring. A few hundred years ago, when tufa was prolific in the world, people would use it to make and carve stone planters and stone watering troughs like these. But it became too cost prohibitive over time, and back in the 1800s, gardeners in England actually invented something that would work and resemble tufa, and they called it Hypertufa. It's a wonderful product, and it lasts just like stone. It weathers well, it will take the freeze-thaw cycle, it will hold water if you wanted to make a fountain inside one, or just like a watering trough. But the really cool thing is you can make all kinds of planters and objects that look like limestone. So today I'm going to show you how this is also a tufa, because it's both going to serve as fall decorations and also for the wedding. So I guess this will be wedding project number 4, and a whole lot of stuff for me. Now, what is in the mix for Hypertufa? It's really pretty simple. Oh. And I already have a batch ready to mix here. It is a mixture of really 4 things: sphagnum peat moss, Portland cement, and either perlite or vermiculite, and water. Now the perlite, which is really, like volcanic popcorn, it's going to give you a more textured Hypertufa. If you want it smoother, then just replace the perlite with vermiculite. Now, there are so many how-to videos out there on how to make Hypertufa. And there's also planes going overhead. And there's also equally as many recipes. But I found a lady who has been making Hypertufa for many years, and her recipe was a little bit different than anyone else's. Plus, she added an extra ingredient that is a bonding agent, and it will strengthen your containers, which especially if you make very large ones. So that was really important to me. I liked that idea, so I am using her recipe. This is going to make a pretty good sized batch. So what I have here, 4 quarts of peat moss, and you might notice how fine it is. That's because I sifted it. That took a little time. I put a screen over a bucket, and I just kept sifting it back and forth so that I didn't have any clumps or anything lumpy in it. Then you got 4 quarts of perlite, or like I said, vermiculite if you prefer a smoother finish. And then you have 3 quarts of pure Portland cement. And that I also screened and sifted it out. And there were just a few little tiny little clumpy things left, but it's all going to work very well because it's very fine particles. Now the first thing to do, this is just a sterilite container. By the way, I have an extra one of these which would make a fantastic trough. But the first thing I'm going to do is mix these 3 ingredients very well. You want to make sure everything's mixed, nothing's left in the cracks, and you definitely need to wear a mask, and you definitely need to wear gloves. In this gallon jug of water, I have it filled half full, so that's 2 quarts. And this is the concrete bonding adhesive. I got it at Lowe's. Any place that sells the concrete is going to have the bonding adhesive. And to that 2 quarts, I am adding 3/4 of a cup of the bonding agent. Now with this much mix in here, I'm going to go ahead and pour this whole thing in. And start mixing it with my hands, gloved hands. This won't be enough water. I'll have to continue adding water, but you want to add just a little along. You don't want to put too much in. You don't want it too soupy. You also don't want it too dry. You want it actually to be like brownie mix or cottage cheese when you make a ball. You want it to hold together and not have a bunch of moisture coming out. But from everything that I've watched and read, it's better to err on the side of being a little too wet than being too dry, because if it's too dry, it would be brittle. I've worked a lot with concrete overlays when I had my store, so I can testify to the fact that that is true. I have it in the sunshine right now so that you can see it. But here in a minute, I'm going to cover my, I'm going to turn my umbrella so that it is in the shade. Continuing to add some water. You know, when you're doing this project, it takes a while to set up and get all your supplies ready. So if you decide to do it, I would say make an afternoon of it and do as many as you can. Okay, so see, if I pack it like a snowball, pretty good. I'm going to give just a tiny bit more water to it. And I think we'll be good. After I get this all mixed, I need to let it rest and sit for 5 minutes or so, 5 to 10, because all the product is still going to be kind of absorbing that water and mixing in real well. When I come back, I need to check it again because it's possible I might need to add some more water to it after I've let it sit. So I'm going to spread it out, show you again. Nice snowball. So let's let this sit for about 5 minutes. All right, I'm going to add just a tiny bit more water to this mix. Because after it sat here for a little bit, it did seem to get a little dried out. We're going to start with pumpkins. And first, I'm going to show you the cheapest way to make a Hypertufa pumpkin. Using a piece of nylon pantyhose, I've got 2 here, about 14 to 16 inches long, and I have tied a knot in the bottom of it. I cut off the foot because that would have been weird, so I tied just above the foot. Make sure I keep my knot at the bottom. And I'm going to start filling it with the Hypertufa. You want to pat it down real well. Or you could keep making it as big as you want. I think I will add just a little bit more because this is actually going to be one for the wedding, and I'll show you why here in a minute. At this point, to make the lines, you have a couple of choices. If it's small enough, you can use just some rubber bands. There went that one. If you had a really giant one, you would have to use some kind of twine or something and tie the sections in there. Now, I haven't tied this off yet. Bring it back up here through the center. So I'm going to add a little stick. Let me get my scissors first. I'm going to trim this just a little bit, make it a little easier to get my stick in there. Push it all the way down. All right, now this is going to be a total experiment here because I've not seen anybody else do it. I'm going to have to take these gloves off, so I think, to do this part. But I'm going to try it and see if it works. I bought these little letters at Hobby Lobby. I do. Now I got to come around here and make sure I don't have it upside down. Yeah, I do. And I think I'm going to try to tuck them down in here so that they'll leave an imprint. But there is one thing I need to do first so that when I unmold it, that it will come off easily. And that's to use some spray pan. We'll be doing that when we make the containers too. And I'm going to carefully push this down in here. If I can, see if it'll go. I honestly think I need to use some heavier duty rope. So, if I can find my scissors. At this point, it needs to go in a plastic bag, and it needs to be placed in a shady, cool place. So I have actually laid out some plastic on the floor of my office, and that's where I will be putting it. And it will stay there for 2 days. Aren't those cute? But there is another way to make Hypertufa pumpkins too, using paper mache pumpkins. And I actually have several paper mache pumpkins in my fall stock, so I thought, well, I'll try using those, because with those I can get taller shapes than you can get really with using the pantyhose. So now I'll show you that one. For option number 2, we're going to go with a paper mache pumpkin, as I just described. And again, we're going to just pack it full. You need to keep tamping it down as you go so that it will get really packed. Actually going to use this longer stick to poke as I go and make sure it's really packing in there. Oh, one other thing I forgot to do. On these paper mache pumpkins, just to add a little bit of extra stability, need to wrap some tape around them just to make sure they stay together and don't start bulging out. Although that probably wouldn't look bad either, because pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes. All right, now I can continue. And I know one thing, I'm going to have to mix up some more Hypertufa before I can even do any containers. Hopefully I've got enough to fill this pumpkin. You know, another nice thing about the Hypertufa, it's very lightweight. It doesn't weigh like concrete, which is fantastic. Looks like I didn't get that tape very well. All right, pause here while I make some more. These molds like this are a little bit harder because you don't really know if it's getting all down in those grooves or not. We can hope. Okay, for the top, I had cut the stem off the top. Now, you could make a stem like using photo paper, like the glossy side, do a strip and then tape a cone and slit it and lay it on here and fill that. But I'm actually going to try to use the stem that came with it, the paper mache stem. See how that goes. If it doesn't work or it breaks off, I've got another idea for a stem. I could just stick a wooden one down in there, but I kind of wanted these to look just a little different. So I'm going to put some raw kind of on top of that, and then I'm going to squish that down. And I'll take my gloves off for this part again. To hold it down, I'm going to use some duct tape again. Isn't that an original sound? You hear duct tape and you know it. So again, I'm going to put this one also in a plastic bag. Just now realized I didn't have my mic on. So again, I'm going to also put this one in a plastic bag. And it too needs to, just like the other one, stay in the shade in a cool, dark place. So it's going to go in my study on the floor that has plastic down. I'm also probably going to put a tray under them just to be extra sure. You never want to let your Hypertufa mix go to waste, So now let's have some fun making some containers.